Hey everybody, Robert with RC Archery. This week's video is a little different. It is a compilation video throughout the entire year of the holding low, bobbing up and down, bad aim videos that I've done. So I've taken a certain clip out of each video, tried to get a range of different topics, things that can be discussed, going over all of the issues with holding low on target, bobbing up and down, bad aim, all that kind of stuff, putting them in this one. Down below in the description, there are timestamps. So if you want to watch just certain portions of the video or come back and watch different ones, definitely is there for you. The timestamps are going to show you what video that I pulled these from, and they will have a link as well to that video. So if you find one that you just like, something in there that you want to continue watching, maybe it's something you're working on or need help with, you can click those links and it'll just take you directly to the standalone video from throughout this year. If you want to see the members portion of this channel, see the members video this week as well. That's going to be going over a form flaw that I found in a recent tournament round that I shot. I've got a video of that and a breakdown of what happened. And honestly, being one of the more important parts in my shot, I'm going to also go through the fix for what's going on, why this broke down, and what part of my shot process that I'm focusing on now to keep that from happening again. This is one of these important areas that if you can get this one segment right, the rest of your shot is way easier. And if you get the one segment wrong, you're gonna have those moments where the shot felt good, the pin looked right, and the arrow didn't hit the target where you thought it was, and this is why. So it was really cool to catch this on video. It's actually a little bit more pronounced than I thought it would be when I went back to watch this. So that'll be an awesome breakdown. If you'd like to check out the members channel, down below there's a description, or down below in the description rather, there is a link to the two separate sections of the members channel, the pricing for each one and what you get with each. So coaching with me, just the videos, both, whatever you may be wanting out of that. So thank y'all for watching throughout 2025. We just hit 19,000 subscribers at the time of me recording this. Crazy to think about that. I know that is still small in terms of YouTube, but it's huge for me in a small little YouTube channel that I'm doing with archery. So appreciate everybody for your likes, your shares, your comments, everything that you've done to help support this channel. Super awesome. Ready to do this again. And hope you have a good New Year's, a safe New Year's, and enjoy these videos. And I will see you in 2026. In today's video, we're going to talk about the dreaded low hold, or the bobbing low and coming back to the middle aim on target. All right, the first thing that I see really common is what we're doing with draw length and how that works with our bow shoulder. If we are too short on the draw length, that shoulder has to come up and then be driven back towards our neck. And when we do that, it's actually hinging everything on the shoulder joint, and it pushes the hand down. You can actually see here, if I bring this shoulder in and I'm pulling it up next to my neck, that my hand is wanting to go down as well. So when we're aiming, if we're getting to full draw and then we're, getting the bow drawn back, getting into anchor, and then we have to bring that shoulder into anchor, at that point we are already pushing the bow down, forcing it down below the target. And that's actually going to cause us to have either a bobbing up and down and forcing down, coming back up to the middle because we're trying to lift it back up, or we're just going to start hanging low and having our float want to settle below the middle of the target. And this is really common with people, even when they don't have target panics. You don't always have target panic when you lock in low like that. A lot of the times it can just be a form issue. The other thing that I see is actually the inverse of this, and the opposite, just meaning our draw length is too long. And you can see that when the draw length is too long, it creates a disconnection in the shoulder joint. So you can actually see a little bit of a U shape in between my shoulder and my neck and all of that area. And that's because the joint itself is pressed too far out. When we do this, we lose support in that shoulder, and we lose the ability to transfer the bow's weight into our core. And we essentially have to hold everything up with our arm and our neck at that point. So the bow is going to feel really heavy. You're going to see some big swoopy aiming movements, but you're also going to see a lot of the times that the aim wants to drop low, and you may be bobbing up and down most likely. You may force yourself and it may lock in low just because you can't physically hold it up anymore towards the end of maybe your shooting round, or if you've been shooting for a while, something like that. but you will most likely see a lot of up and down bobbing on target and some issues that you have just because that draw length is too long. Now, there is some draw length test that I run everybody through when I'm working with them on coaching. A lot of what I do is based off of natural points of aim, and that starts with the way that we set up our stance, how open that makes our hips, and that drives the shoulders more open, creates a natural angle that our shoulder is going to be at to create our body's draw length. Some tests that you can do really quickly at home is just based off of filming yourself, taking a picture of yourself and how your bow is fitting you based on your form that you're at right now. Keep in mind, we want to be in a natural T position. So if you were to just stand there and raise your arms up at your side, we want this to all be the same when we have the bow in our hands. So if you do this and raise the bow up from your side, draw it back, be conscious to not adjust to the bow. We don't want to start leaning our head and our neck into the string or leaning it back away from it or doing something with our bow shoulder where we're pulling it in or pushing it out. We would like to be in a consistent and natural body position where we're supported in our best fitment with the bow as well. So we want to make sure that, if you have a variance there or something is wrong, you start making those adjustments to your draw length. And that'll help you a lot whenever you're having to worry about, is this correct or is this not, as far as getting a baseline set up to then start fine tuning for you. Hey everybody, Robert with RC Archery, and you're watching Tuesday's Tip of the Week number 113. In this week's video, we're going to continue talking about how to adjust certain areas of our bow to help it shoot easier for us and to aim and be more accurate for our shot and how we're actually shooting the bow. In this week's video, we're going to actually look at loops, talk about the height, what we're doing as far as how to adjust those, what we're looking for, what it affects with our aiming and with our natural points of aim on target. This is a step that I take with my coaching students, but this is something that is widely talked about, especially by people like Paige Pierce and other archers that take to social media and give this tip out. And it's hugely successful whenever you get this set up correctly for you. And it way surpasses what people try to do with weighting their bars and getting weights in certain positions and certain length of bars and putting bars in certain places. Like this one tip here, when we're looking at the height of our loop and where it sit on our string, this is going to make way bigger of a difference. It's going to help you shoot way easier every time you pick up the bow. All right, so when we are looking at where our loop sits, the height of it, and everything that's going on, I want to get a couple things out of the way, just make sure everybody understands what we're doing with this and what it's for as well. So when we're adjusting this, this is not for tuning, not at all. The only thing that this is going to be for is how we want to hold on target and what pattern our aim is taking. And a lot of people will ask me questions, and we'll talk about this when I'm working with them on coaching or when they're just asking questions. And if you have this loop height set up correctly, from there, when you go to tune your bow, you will adjust the rest. You will use the height adjustment on this rest, and that's what you're doing to get whatever tune you are looking for. If you change arrow diameters and go to a larger diameter arrow or a skinnier diameter arrow, you're not going to change the loop height at that point to adjust for the knock height. You're going to change the rest height again and adjust that for the tune that you need for that arrow. So when I'm getting a new bow and working on this or setting up a bow or whatever, I'm first worrying about my aim before I ever do anything with tuning. I could care less about tuning when I first get the bow. I need it to aim well. So I'm going to set this up. I'm going to get the arrow relatively to 90 degrees when I set this up. If you've never done this before, or if you're starting this on a new bow, or maybe you're just starting this for the first time, what I recommend for the majority of bows and the geometry of the risers and the way that everything stacks up, you can run the center of your arrow. So when you have it knocked on the string, which coincides with the center of the pulling point of your loop, through the middle of the burger button hole. And that's where I'm going to say start out with it there. If you've never done this, you have a new bow, a new riser set up, if you're changing bows, something like that, start there. That's a pretty even place. Most manufacturers, when they set these bows up, the center of the bow right now is somewhere around this burger button hole, a little below, a little above, or right in the middle. So that'll give you kind of a central pulling location. Now from there, if we want to change the way our aim is reacting. So say we are aiming and we notice a tendency for the bow to want to fall down on target. And this is with just a normal stabilizer setup, nothing crazy is going on. Or if you really want to get into it, you could take the bars off or the weights and everything off the bars altogether. We are looking for how we're adjusting the leverage and what we're doing here by raising this loop up. And this is starting here because I see a lot of people have this issue commonly. They're aiming really well on target and then the bow is wanting to drop down and they're fighting it to get back up. They weight their back bar more, they weight their front bar more, whatever they're doing, they just keep having this issue. Especially if you are a dynamic shooter and you're pulling through the shot. As you're pulling through the shot, if you start noticing the aim wants to go down on target, a lot of the times it's this loop that we need to change and move up on the actual serving itself. So the reason we're doing that is because if you take this bow the way that I have it set up right now and I pull on it, it's pulling here, more so the center of the bow. But if you walk up the loop or walk up the string a little bit and start pulling, you're pulling more from the top of the bow. Same thing if you go down below the center of the bow and start pulling on it, you're pulling more from the bottom of the bow. So you're lifting it up, or you're lifting the bottom of the bow up. So there's really not a rhyme or reason as to where you need to set this up. A lot of people will say that they run their arrow in a certain location, the bottom of the arrow in the middle of the burger buttonhole, or the top of it, or the bottom of it, or wherever it is. There's really not a combination that's going to just be like, this bow needs this, and this bow needs that. You're actually just going to want to find what works best for you and what aims best for you. Because for me, on a lot of bows that people have said they need their loop really high on the string, I'm more closer to the middle. So it really just depends on your grip pressures. If you put more heel into the bow or more webbing of your hand into the bow, have a high wrist, low wrist, that kind of thing. And you're really just looking into it to see like, where does this need to be? But while you're doing this, you can adjust that loop height up and down while you're working on your aim. I would suggest doing aiming drills. Don't even really need to shoot, but you can simulate a shot if you are a pull-through style shooter or more dynamic in your shot. There has been multiple videos on this channel about holding low on target, but today's video is specifically going to be the 2 most common reasons that I find people are having problems holding low on target. There are a lot of different reasons why you could be holding low on target. Done a ton of videos about those, but one of the main culprits that I see causing people to hold low on target is their release. A lot of people use a thumb release. This is very common for people that are getting into the sport, leaving from an index, wanting to get into a handheld, and they go about it in the way of thinking that if they have a hair trigger, it's very light, doesn't take a lot to make it go off, that will make them more accurate. And over time, it's actually causing you to hold low on target because you're afraid of putting your thumb on the trigger. So there's some different things that we can do to combat this. One is completely change the release out. You can go to a resistance release, set it heavy enough to require you to build into that shot and stay into it. You can use a hinge release, but you can also get in trouble with these. You want to make sure that you're not going to use a fast click that doesn't, have a lot of movement after the click for the shot to fire. You want to make sure that you're using a medium or even a slow click, because again, we want to build into that shot. We want to have trust in it. Or if you don't want to change releases and you want to keep using your thumb release, you can adjust the trigger tension to help you with this same concept. What I do a lot of the times with people is I have them take whatever thumb release they're using, if it has an adjustable trigger tension, and put one full twist into the screw that's for that adjustment to make it that much heavier. Try it out, see how it goes. What most people will find is this immediately starts to help them. And the reason it is because we want to be able to engage our muscles into the shot without fear of the release letting go. If we can do that, then we can set our body up, we can relax a little bit in the right spots, and we can build that tension up and actually work through the shot itself. This is the thumb release that I'm using right now. You can see that if I'm going to place my thumb on here and start squeezing down on this trigger, I want you to see how much effort it's going to take for me. So you can see that release is actually moving in my hand. So it's going to require me to be firm in my hand and actually hold tension with my fingers. I can get on that thumb barrel with my thumb without fear of it firing, get a little bit of pre-tension built up into that trigger, and then as I'm pulling, squeezing, whatever I'm doing to actually fire the release, I don't have to move and disrupt my shot. And I'm able to do that because I'm already holding into that release. I'm not timid, and then I can just actually work through shot execution. In last week's video, we went over how to use your release to help you with your aim and make your shot a little easier. In this week's video, we are going to actually talk about the pressures that we're putting into that release, how that's affecting our aim. It can make you hold low on target or actually spread you across the target left, right, or high as well. And we want to go through this. I'm going to give you some form breakdowns, some equipment breakdowns, individually looking at thumb releases and hinge releases, and make all of this make sense to you. So to start this video off, let's look at some universal stuff between all style of releases and also how that connects with our loop length and our form. So last week we talked about keeping our fingers in the middle of the release. That way that we've got even pressure, everything is running through the middle of the hand. When we are actually looking at our form, whether we're looking at photos of ourselves or videos, whatever that may be, the height of our rear elbow has some correlation with the pressure that we're putting on this release, whether it be on the top of the release or on the bottom of the release. If our loop is too short for us, one, that's going to mess up our rear shoulder position, but also it has a tendency to make your elbow get very high. And when we're doing that, we actually start having to lift up on the release, especially if we start pulling through our shot in order to execute. When people are doing this, they'll start noticing that their aim on target and their float will lock down and start drifting below the middle of the target. A lot of people will mistakenly look at this as target panic, when in reality, it's just our elbow being too high and we're lifting up on the release. You can also have this happen in reverse. If we get too long in the loop length, we can get the elbow too low. Basically, if this elbow gets below the height of our hand and our wrist, we start pulling on the top of the release and it starts pulling down. That can create some issues as well. We also want to look into rocker positions. Now, we talked about that last week in the video as well, where we're looking at how far the release is rocked to the index or away from the index, and I gave you my tip on making that a lot simpler. But I would like to look at this a little bit differently with a thumb release and with a hinge release, in regards to the pressures that we're putting into it during execution, how to set up the thumb trigger, the positioning of it, and also the hinge speed as well. At some point in time, most of you, and myself included, have gone through an issue of either having your sight pin with what they call a dip bang, where it'll drop suddenly right before your release fires, shot happens, or you will just start hanging low on the target as soon as you start to engage your release. Both of these problems are typically related to each other and can be solved by the same thing. So in this video today, I'm going to break this down between a hinge release and a couple tricks and fixes on that, and also on your thumb release as well. When it comes to a hinge release, there's a couple problems that a lot of people run into when they start experiencing either dip bangs or hanging low on the target whenever they start to engage their shot. The most common one is the speed of the release being too fast. They're afraid of the shot firing early. They're afraid of it happening before they're ready. And as soon as they either take their thumb off the thumb peg, or as soon as they start engaging with a pull or a movement in their release hand, they'll see their sight picture either just start to drop and lock below the target, or they'll see that dip bang right before the shot fires. Really quickly, what you can do with this is test this out by slowing the release down and just seeing if that fixes the problem. For the majority of people, it will. It will allow you to get your hand more relaxed. It will allow you to not be afraid of the release firing early, and it will help you with your issues. We want to be able to feel engaged in the shot and feel like we can actually pull into the back wall, steady our bodies up, and not worry about anything happening with that release and not being locked in with being too tense on our index finger. The other thing that can be a problem when it comes to a hinge is actually having a fear of either the click happening or the release firing too fast after it gets to the click. If you're in the letter camp, if you're worried about the release firing too fast after you get to the click, there's a couple things you can do here. One is switch that click shelf out if that's a possibility for you, meaning if you're running a fast click, go to a standard click or go to a slow click. The other thing that you can do if that's not helping, but it's still the time frame from when the click is happening to when the shot is firing, is slow the release down. And the reason I say that is that having the release slower and getting to the click a little bit later in our tension buildup and on our anchor position will force you to have to work through the release a little bit harder, and it will in essence make it feel slower from when the click is happening to when the shot is firing, because you're just taking away some of the available movement for you. The other trick you can see if if you think the click is a problem for you in general, is take it out of the equation. There's a really quick way to check this, or if you just need to get your shot back on track, but you like using the click, you can do this trick as well. And what I like to do is actually get my release hooked up to the bow or your shot trainer or whatever you're using, rotate it until you get to the click. So now I'm at the click. So at that point, I just rock it back to where my thumb is back on the thumb peg, my hand is engaged like normal. From that point, I'll draw the bow back, I'll get myself into anchor, do everything like I normally would, and then I'll just start working through that release just like normal. And this is going to replicate not having a click on the release, and it's going to be a surprise shot. This can help you if you're just worried about the click happening and you need to restart your shot, or you may find that you just need to be able to shoot these hinge releases without a click in general. When we use a thumb button release on generally all thumb buttons, we don't have a click. So whenever you're using those, you've gotten used to that style of shot. When you add that click in, for a lot of people, it's very hard to get used to. So this is a good way to bypass that and just see if that is the problem. You can also find that as you're doing this drill, because you don't have that click as a consistent starting position, you can actually find out over time if you have your release set up with the speed correct for you. It may be too hot and it's firing too soon, you don't like how it's working, or maybe really slow and you feel like you have to work through the release a lot harder. So that is also a way for you to kind of do a check on what you're doing with the speed setting and see if that is correct for you as well. Today's video topic is something that no one is immune to. I fight with this sometimes on a daily basis, but all of us at some point will have problems with inconsistent float and inconsistent aiming on target. Sometimes from one day to the next, one shot to the next, we'll have really, really good aim, and then we'll have mediocre and awful aim. And today's video, we're gonna cover the two most common reasons that I see that this is happening with different people, and it revolves around our bow shoulder, getting it set correctly every time, and also getting the pressure between our hands correct every time as well. All right, the main thing that most of us have problems with when it comes to inconsistent aiming from one shot to the next or day to day is in our shoulder. This bow shoulder is the most important aspect of having steady aim on target, and being able to seat it correctly inside the joint and do that consistently from one shot to the next is huge in having a consistent aiming pattern. So one thing that I want to make very clear is my drawing motion, what I am doing by raising the arm up, and how I'm setting the joint with the motion, with some of the pre-work that goes into it, and getting myself into anchor that makes me steadier and more consistent. That's gonna be the name of the game here, is just finding what works for you to be the most consistent from one shot to the next. To have a little illustration here, I thought it would be fun. I'm gonna hold this arrow out where you can see with my arm how this looks. So when I've got this knock here at the inside part of my shoulder, so this is the muscle here on the inside part where I can feel it, I'm going to change my shoulder position and let you see what this looks like. So This is natural for me. This is where I would shoot my bow at. This is the position that everything would be at here for me. But if I pull this shoulder in and hump my shoulder up, and mind you, this is not severe. This is way less than what a lot of other people will have. You can see the distance that my hand travels up the arrow shaft versus down and in place like normal. So you can see it moves. I mean, it's a good bit. It's at least a half an inch, maybe 3/4 of an inch, maybe even close to an inch if it's more extreme here. I mean, that's changing draw length by a lot. I mean, half an inch, 1 inch. This is the reason why you are shooting and trying to figure out what draw length you are. And from one day to the next, you may be a 28 and you may be a 29, you may be something completely different. So keep that in mind when you're doing this. The other thing that I want to talk through is when I am drawing the bow back, I am setting a tension in the bow hand by a little bit of separation between my release hand and my bow hand as I bring the bow off my leg and start to swing and raise the bow up. By doing that, it's pushing maybe 2-3 pounds of separation between the hands by kind of pushing away and off with the bow hand. I am not reaching out to the target and outstretching my arm and disconnecting the shoulder joint. I'm simply loading the muscle just a little bit so that as I'm doing that and raising the bow up, it's engaged. I can feel how my joint actually is in place or not and get a more consistent feel throughout my draw motion and getting to anchor. But you can see that if I were to do this same drill here and hold this in that position that I did before, if I stick my hand down here and then I reach and I stick and really reach out for the target, I can separate my shoulder joint and my fingers now are at the end of this arrow, versus if I just raise the bow up like normal, my hand is here and my finger is about an inch away from the end of the arrow. So maybe 1.5 inches. Again, a huge difference in why you may be feeling one day that you're a certain draw length, one day you're not, and why you have consistent aim at certain times and not consistent aim at other times. Here on the channel, we have done a lot of videos over dipping, holding low, having bad float where it bobs up and down, all of that. So today's video, we're gonna focus in on stabilizer weighting so we can get a better idea of why that may be causing you to have some dips on target or naturally wanting to settle and hold low. It could be the exact opposite of what you expect it to be. And then we're also going to get into hand pressures, keeping good back wall pressure, and how that relates with our releases. So we're getting everything a little bit easier for you to work through your shot and not fight the bow. When it comes to holding steadier on target, not fighting the dipping sight picture or the holding low sight picture, if that doesn't revolve around target panic, a lot of the times it could be as simple as just how we have the bow weighted. And when I'm talking about weight, I'm actually talking about the bias of the bow front to back. So when we're looking at the weight balance here, a lot of this is dependent on how hard you pull into the back wall, but also no matter what, in my opinion, you need to have a little bit of front weight bias on the bow to be able to help you with your shot. And what I mean by front weight bias is at your complete full draw, pressure's built up, working through your shot execution, you want the bow to want to still tip forward just a little bit so that you have to physically hold back into the back wall with steady and solid pressure, and that you have something for your arm to work against to actually lift and hold the bow up. That doesn't need to be extreme and it doesn't need to be a workout for you. But if we have it set up to where our arm is engaged and we're giving ourselves a direction of motion of lifting up, holding against the weight of the bow, wanting to pull it down, then that will help us hold steadier, but it will also help us keep from having the dips on target or the low hold that a lot of people misdiagnose and think they need more back weight on their bow. When you start adding too much back weight on the bow, thinking it will hold the bow up on target and lift the bow up, what that's actually doing is when you start to pull into the back wall, it's lifting the bow up like this, and then you have to relax the bow arm to get it to come back down. And you can see that if I'm at full draw and it's coming up and I'm relaxing the arm to get it to go down, I'm gonna fight those pressures up and down, or I'm just gonna start sticking and holding low, and that's gonna cause us some problems. So we don't wanna have too much weight on the back as a Band-Aid fix for poor form or poor shot execution and pressures on what we're doing.